Okay, Vince, are you ready for rapid fire?
Oh man, let's hit it. A little rapid fire on a Monday. I'm
All right.
ready.
So Jeremiah Love did a little ESPN over the
Mm.
weekend. They talked with him about hurdling, like hurdling during games, and Saquon Barkley's backwards hurdle came up.
Kind of like a daredevil type of player. Like I wanted to go out there and do anything. And seeing Saquon, do the backwards hurdle, that really inspired me to, go out on the field and, try to play as free as I can. And shoot, that's kind of where I got a lot of my motivation to continue the hurdling. Seeing him do it on the next level, and then just seeing that, like, dang, that's probably one of the greatest plays in football history I've ever seen. So, seeing him do that, he plays my position, seeing him do that and play free, as free as he does, just gave me, a little bit more motivation to be myself on the field. And I most definitely plan on some point down the road to attempt at doing a backwards hurdle if the situation's right. But, until then, I'm going to stick to jumping over people the regular way.
Yeah.
The regular way.
Like it's such a common occurrence for everybody else.
Exactly. So Jeremiah Love wants to attempt a backwards hurdle. Are you in on Jeremiah Love doing that next season?
Look, if there was somebody in the country that could do it, it would be him. I will preface it with that. But I'm out on him attempting it because I just don't like when you see other people try to hurdle somebody, it usually ends with them either not being able to land it, right? And going down immediately or getting tackled pretty quickly afterwards, as opposed to Jeremiah Love, who just leaps over a guy and then just keeps on going. Like that's just not a normal thing. Doing it backwards, I just don't see the outside of just like the highlight, I guess, of it. You're going to have to like literally turn around and I don't know. Don't plan that, man. Like, I just don't see it working out. I don't know.
No. Unless if he's going to do a backwards hurdle going into the end zone to win the national championship game, okay,
by all means,
there we go.
Let's get rolling. Yeah, right? I'm good with that too.
I don't see any real benefit in this, especially after seeing him, end the season the way he did with the sore knee and all that kind of stuff. It's like, do we really need that much more? Like look at the Indiana game. It felt like that hurdle that he did in the Indiana game was just like, well, I'm doing this. It's like he was stuck in the backfield. He's trying to get out of the backfield, but it's like, okay, do we really need more? Do we really need more hurdling at this point?
Yeah, I get nervous every time he does it, but it almost feels like every time he does it, he gets better at it, which is wild all by itself.
Is there any truth to this rumor that Trevor's throwing in here? Vince could hurdle people backwards back in the day?
I mean, back in the 90s, you just never know what was going to happen, Trevor.
Vince was hurdling babies backwards back in the day. Dodging all those babies in his living room.
I was going to say, I feel like that's now, but they're not babies anymore. That's the problem. But yeah.
Ryan says we got to do the 4.5 hour show. Like Brian and Trevor.
That'll be past my bedtime.
Those guys are setting records every day, man. It's
Trevor and Brian are seriously setting records. Like
I know.
Guinness Book of World Record type stuff every single day. Trevor, whatever Brian's paying Trevor, he is earning every penny of it. I'll just say it. I'm here for you, Trevor. If you ever need an agent, give me a call.
We might have to push this show back to 6:00 again, the way it's going.
Seriously. Oh, it's Brian and Sean.
Oh, Sean today.
Oh, no Trevor. That explains the extra half hour. My man Sean likes to get it out there. So that makes a little bit more sense. That's why Trevor's in our show. He's ready to he's like chomping at the bit.
Father David says the benefit is the backwards hurdle is awesome.
It is awesome. I'm just nervous.
We've only seen one successfully
correct.
Tried, and that was Saquon Barkley in an NFL game.
Correct. The last thing, I don't even want to say it out loud. Like something negative could happen after a hurdle. Like that's all I'll say.
Go down,
and people would be devastated. Yeah. Devastated for something silly.
That's what I say. End of the season.
Yes.
Backwards hurdle into the end zone.
To win it.
win a championship.
His
Sure.
last carry as a Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Yeah, I'm good with that too.
Ryan's going to keep pushing for the 24-hour IB network. You're not even here anymore. What are you pushing? How are you pushing for this?
It's like he's the guy on the side just like needling. He's just like, yeah,
Right.
just needling everybody. I love it.
Fill in the blank. Outside of Jeremiyah Love, the Notre Dame player who most excites you is blank.
So I need a clarifier. Are we talking about the 24 team or the potential of the 25 team?
25, still on the roster.
Ooh.
Going into 25.
Ooh. Okay, because I had different answers. Because I was going to say Riley Leonard if it was the 24 team.
Okay.
Okay, so that's where I was going to go there. The 25 team, and it's outside of Jeremiyah Love. I'm going to say it, and people are going to get pissed. CJ Carr. I don't care. That's where I went. Brian's with me. Brian NY, you're with me. I appreciate that.
Here we go.
See?
Here we go.
We're just getting the hype train rolling here.
Yep. Ryan says Boubacar,
I can see that.
if healthy.
But see, the ball is in the quarterback's hand every single time.
Yeah, I know.
It's just that the odds are in your favor, you know? I don't know, man.
I'm going to go offense. Since you went with CJ Carr, I'm going to go Jaden Greathouse.
I was right there too. Yeah.
Full in on Jaden Greathouse being a dude this year.
You and Salty.
That's right. I'm going to ride that salty train. Unsalted, but salted. I'm going to ride that salty train on the Jaden Greathouse being a dude this year offensively. I like that. I like the takeoff, the breakout, if you will, that we saw from him at the end of the postseason in the last two games. Defense, I'm going to go with the Don Schuler defensively. I think, I like what Ryan is saying about Boubacar. I do want to see how healthy he is, to what extent that knee is going to affect him. Hopefully he's going to be fully healthy and ready to go by next season, but you never know. So I'm going to go with the Don Schuler. I just feel like this guy, it's still a bullet for him and just more opportunities with Xavier Watts gone now as well.
Brian NY and I are on the same page. It's Carr on offense and it's Drake Bowen on defense. I feel like with Drake,
that one too.
With Drake Bowen kind of bypassing baseball and just not focusing on that this spring and just focusing on football alone, I think you're going to see a big jump. And he was really good this year, right? He was really good this year, but I think you're going to see a big jump in his progression and in his leadership and in his playmaking ability, even more so from year one of starting to year two of starting without baseball being in the picture. And I think he's a tremendous baseball player. I just don't think he was playing as much as maybe he had hoped and, all of that. And baseball's his ticket. And so I think you're going to see a big jump.
I think so as well. I think so as well. He wasn't, he did obviously have to, devote a pretty good amount of time over there. Joe Allen says Onye. And I mean, it's exciting, obviously, that Onye is going to be back with the team, according to everything that we've heard. And I know Ryan had something on that, recently as well. But I don't know about you, but personally, I've kind of been waiting on Onye anyway for the last couple of years to kind of really make that step. And I mean, he was playing solid last year, but still not anywhere close to, I think, what we expected we were going to see.
With all the injuries, he may have had an opportunity to break out a little bit, but he was off the roster and it just wasn't going to happen, right? And he's just got a lot of work to do off the field before I get too far onto the Onye bandwagon. He's got the potential to do it. I'm not ready to predict that it's going to happen, though. You know what I mean? There's just a lot that needs to be fixed. And we'll see how it goes. I mean, look, he could probably do it, but I still need to see it.
Sean says he was missed, though, and you're absolutely right. I mean,
sure he was.
Especially at the end of the season when you had Riley Mills go down, and even with Howard Cross being banged up and stuff like that, he was missed as a rotation piece. Yeah.
And there's no doubt about it. He would have gotten more playing time if he was on the roster. But he wasn't. And, let's see if he can make it through a year of being on the roster the whole time. You know what I mean? Like there's benchmarks that need to be hit before I'm ready to say that he's going to be a breakout type player.
Yeah. Saw a few people slide in Bryce Young, and I think that's a really that's a potentially a really fun one for next year. See him maybe with another 15 or so pounds on that frame and
not
really
losing any of his speed.
Getting after it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that could be fun.
Big opportunity there in terms of the pass rush and everything that Bryce Young can give you. What position group are you most confident in right now, Vince?
The running back room. That's where I think they're going to legitimately be 4 deep, and what a great opportunity for a new coach to walk into. I mean, right? Like that, you're walking into an absolutely loaded room. So it's running backs for me. That's the one I'm most excited about. And it's kind of, look, it's football, right? So all the position groups are intertwined in some form or fashion. But with how good I think the offensive line is going to be as well, the running backs are really going to shine.
See, and that's mine is the offensive line.
And that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Because I mean, it's just going to be like a stupid wealth, basically, for the offensive line going into next season. We've talked about it. The fact that you could have a couple of guys who started a whole lot of games this season, number 2 on the depth chart next year, and the fact that you've got Jagasaw coming back, potentially Gerby Lambert, just like everything that bodes well. I mean, there's a reason, obviously, that you saw some of those guys transfer, and it's because there's just so much going on and so much experience now with that line. It feels like a line that can just be flat out dominating next year. And if they are, they're going to take those running backs and everybody else to another level and help a really inexperienced quarterback, whoever ends up being the starting quarterback back
well, and as of right now, Jabron Payne is in that room still too. And I think people forgot about him because of, he got injured and all of those things, but he's on the spring roster right now. Now, I don't know if that'll be the same once they get to the fall, with his injury and everything else. But I mean, you've got incoming freshman Nolan James, Jabron Payne, Jeremiyah Love, Aeneas Williams, Kedron Young, Jadarian Price. Like, that's a heck of a running back room. But I completely agree with you on the offensive line. Like, they're so deep, and they're so like the front end talent on the offensive line is really, really, really good as long as they all stay healthy. And health is obviously a thing. Just look back at 2024. But the front end and the second team, whatever it ends up shaking out to be, it's really, really good offensive line wise.
Fill in the blank. The Notre Dame women beating number 21 Cal 91-52 is blank.
I was going to say unexpected, but why is it unexpected? Because of who they are, like, and what they can do. I mean, it was, well, first of all, it was very pink. There was a lot of pink going on. It
was pink.
Did you have a pink pullover on? I couldn't tell on the TV.
I did not. I had they gave me like the pink ribbon to put on my shirt. So,
so you just had a ribbon. Okay. Yeah. I mean, they just absolutely dominated from start to finish. I mean, they couldn't miss, it felt like, for a while. And I feel like this team is really just starting to gelling and starting to know what the others are doing and all of those things. And I mean, right now, like, Maddie Westbeld is like the 5th or 6th option, which is like mind blowing to me. It's so hard for me to fathom, but I mean, just this team is just littered with talent.
Think about this. Like, if Cal's ranked, whether or not Cal is actually the number 21 team in the country, I don't know. But like, just think about the ranking, number 21. Okay. So if that's the case, that was someone's going to be in that neighborhood, whether it's Cal or anyone else. Like, that's basically a Sweet 16 type caliber team that they beat by 39 points yesterday. And even the other ranked teams in that, they beaten by double digits in all of those games, like Georgia Tech. North Carolina was a little bit closer. It was a road game, but just think about that.
If that holds, they're a 5 seed.
Yes, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. And then again, that's a Sweet 16 type matchup
It's wild.
potentially. And they beat them by 39 points. And that's because of all those things that you talk about. It's really scary because I agree. Like Neil Ivey and I, and we were talking with Sherelle Allen after the Stanford game, the assistant coach, last Thursday night. Like, this team still hasn't fully hit its peak.
Agreed.
And that's what should be really scary for everybody else across the country is we're getting to mid-February. They've won 16 straight and they haven't hit their peak yet. I don't think they're really even close to hitting their peak yet either. There's a lot left for this team out there. So, like, everybody else should be should take that into account and be really scared by what they see from this team.
There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. And it's a fun team to watch. And I still watch the entire game, believe it or not.
See, that's a blowout you can watch.
Yeah, it was. I enjoyed it. It was great. You know, I mean, and they share the basketball so well. They shoot the ball so well. I mean, they are starting to gel and come together. And like some of these no-look passes and all of this other, like, it is nuts. It is nuts. And I know you pushed back on me a little bit the other day when we did our women's basketball mailbag, when I said they're not even going to be challenged until they get to the Final Four. And I think it's starting to become more and more clear that that's the case. You know what I mean? And let's see how they do down. They got a tough stretch here of ranked teams that they're going to play. But man, I tell you what, this is a fun team to watch, and nobody's going to want Notre Dame in their bracket. Like, you know what I mean? Like in their region. Yeah. Nobody.
A week from tonight, they host a top 10 Duke team.
Yep.
So, you know, again, like that game in NC State, Louisville is still out there as well. And, you know, because they got to play Louisville a second time to close out the regular season. So, I mean, those are in terms of what's left on the schedule. I think there's only 6 games left in the regular season right now. And those 3 are half of them. They go to Pittsburgh this Thursday night. And, you know, like, I can't honestly even imagine what that's going to look like against a Pittsburgh team that's down at the bottom of the conference standings right now. But, yeah, I mean, Duke and NC State should be the 2 top challenges. What exactly that looks like, I want to see that. I want to see what that looks like. Because I definitely think it'll be good for them to be pushed and to be
absolutely. That's what you want. I mean, you want to be playing your best basketball going into March, obviously. And, you know, you want that double bye in the ACC tournament so that you don't have to worry about playing as much. And what is it? If you have the double bye, what do you win 3 games? You win the tournament, I think. Something along those lines, right? 2 or 3 or 3 or 4.
Let me think. Quarterfinals, semifinals, championship. Yeah.
Yeah, 3 games. You win 3 games, you win the title. Like, or, you know, the ACC title.
Yeah.
But I mean, like I said, this team is firing, man, and it's fun to watch. It really is.
TD4ND says, who would win if the women played the men? A little more size on that men's team. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what that would look like. So.
Yeah, and the men are going to be physical, and you know that whole thing, and that's what they would have to do. But the women will outshoot them. I mean, there's no doubt about that. They'll share the ball better. Yeah. They'll outshoot them. Nobody on the women's team is going to be able to stop Marcus Burton's first step.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I'd pay money to watch it.
That's the biggest challenge is when the women would be on defense. You know, it's obviously it's a completely different challenge than shooting the ball and you know, running the floor and doing some of those.
I'd watch it. But I would watch that game. I would.
Vince, did last night's Super Bowl put to rest for you the narrative that the refs favor the Chiefs?
Okay. Yes, overall. But after that first offensive foul penalty or
you mean that clear offensive pass interference where he pushed off?
He didn't push off.
He pushed off 3 times. He stiff-armed him to create separation. He's freaking AJ Brown. Are you kidding me? He shouldn't need to freaking push off in the face mask. But okay, all right.
After that call, I was like, ooh, I don't know about that. But then after that, it was fine. Like, there were no issues for me after that call, because there was a lot of calls that they made that were not iffy, but like, I'm surprised they called that. You know what I mean? And it was on Kansas City, so I was cool with it.
The unnecessary roughness call in the first half where Saquon Barkley got pushed in the back a little bit.
On
third
that
down.
they were trying to run a screen, and wasn't it like fourth down too?
Well, it was third down.
Third down. Yeah. So it would have been fourth down. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you don't throw a flag. Like, the only time that gets flagged is if that's the quarterback, basically. You know,
Right.
like
Right.
if the Eagles had pushed Patrick Mahomes like that and they threw a flag for an unnecessary roughness on the quarterback, everyone would have lost their mind if they had thrown a flag. And if that was Patrick, you know, if it had been reversed, it was Patrick Mahomes. And it was a freaking running back. And I couldn't believe that, because he barely touched him and he goes down. It's like, all right, you know, so it's felt like maybe they were overcompensating a little bit. But then, you know, like I didn't see this live, but watching the highlights today, there was a freaking blatant hands to the face with a, you know, Eagles defensive lineman just shoved Patrick Mahomes right in the face mask.
Yeah.
And there was no call on that, you know? So
Yeah.
it's like, okay, I don't think they're going, you know? So again, it felt like maybe overcompensating a little bit, but you know, I think the Eagles just left no doubt. So the officiating ultimately had no impact one way or another.
No, I agree with that. They had no impact. I mean, yeah, the Eagles just dominated that game from start to finish and had nothing to do with the officials. Yep. I mean, even if they wanted the Chiefs to win, they would have been so obvious. You know what I mean? If they were calling a bunch of stuff, getting big plays called back and all of that. But yeah.
Carlos says, who you rooting for there, Sean? I was not rooting for the Eagles. I think that's been pretty clear.
Very clear. Very clear.
I was not rooting for the Eagles. That is loud and clear. So after playing in 10 Super Bowls, Tom Brady made his Super Bowl broadcasting debut last night. Rate his performance on a scale of 1 to 10.
I'd give him like a 7.5, 8. I thought he did a good job. I didn't have any issue with the way that he called the game. I will say, and it's not even his fault, but they kept asking him about when he played and things like that. Like, I kind of wanted him to get away from that a little bit, but they kept asking him, hey, what was it like when you did this? And what was it like when you did that? And this is similar to what you did. And like, I felt that was a little bit overplayed, but I don't blame Tom Brady for that. Those are questions that he's being asked. What is he supposed to say? Hey, like, guys, let's just stop talking about that. Like, you know what I mean? I thought he answered them very professionally. I thought his insight to what Patrick Mahomes was dealing with, you know, running for his life, I thought was actually really good because he was talking about his footwork and things like that.
Interesting.
So I thought that was good.
Okay. Let's start with the fact, and by the way, Joe has the number. It is 4.
Wow.
He was below average. Like, he was there. He was there. I just didn't feel like he provided, you know, like any true insight, like, you know, the footwork, okay, whatever. I guess I missed that, you know, and it's like we can all probably hear specific things, but like the fact that he called Patrick Mahomes Patrick all night.
That I did notice that, by the way.
That bugged me. As a broadcaster, especially, it is just way too familiar. It's like, you remember Bob Lamey, the guy who used to do the radio for the Colts? He would call everybody. It was like Reggie and Marvin and Peyton and, you know, everybody
White
else.
Sox.
Like, that's
White
right.
Sox all day long.
That's exactly
and
right.
It annoyed the crap out of me every time I would hear the Hawk talking about everybody by their first name.
Yeah.
I agree.
I just felt like, for the most part, Brady told us, like, he did talk a lot, as I think Father David said, but like, I don't think he really told us anything that we couldn't sort of see for ourselves most of the time. It's like, man, that's a big pass rush. Like, they got on top of Patrick, you know, they got that pressure on Patrick. Well, it's like, how about you tell us, like, maybe why they got the pass rush? Or again, you know, like, going back to the fact that they're getting that much pass rush with just 4 guys and they're not even blitzing, and they didn't blitz all night, you know, like how impressive it is that they're doing that. Or, okay, so what does Patrick have to do now to counter that impressive pass rush that they're putting on? You know, like, surprised he didn't kind of call for more screens or, you know, something, you know, like to actually tell us, you know, like to give us any true insight. Like, I felt like it was lacking, you know, like maybe I'm being a little bit more critical again as like, someone who broadcasts as well, not the analyst part, but this is a guy who displaced a really good analyst in Greg Olsen from that
Greg
number
Olsen
one
is
booth. And Greg
salty
Olsen
about it too.
Yeah, and Greg Olsen is still better than Tom Brady. And see, again, broad audience. I'm sure most people probably didn't care last night, but I just felt like if you were actually listening to his actual analysis, I felt like he could explain the whys a little bit more, why and how to us a little bit more.
Do you think Greg Olsen, I'm not debating you that Greg Olsen is better now. I'm not debating that at all. If you go back to Greg Olsen's first year doing it, do you think he's better than what Tom Brady is now?
No, that's a good question because Olsen got to do, parts of a couple of seasons being in a number 2 or even 3 or 4, booth where he wasn't the number 1 guy. So he did get a little bit of seasoning.
And I do have a problem with the fact that Tom Brady comes in his first year and is automatically in the top chair. I have a problem with that. Like, you got to work your way up to that top chair. And the only reason he's there is because of his name and how much money they're paying him, right? I mean, that's exactly the bottom line.
Exactly, because he's Tom Brady.
Yeah, right.
But that's also why more is expected of Tom Brady. As a Hall of Fame quarterback, as of right now, he's still the best to ever do it. Like,
sure.
You just
Agreed.
It's just those things that you're talking about. Another season or two, maybe he kind of finds some of that. He was a little bit looser in the playoffs maybe than he was at some different points during the season. I felt like I've said this before. I've just never felt like he's the most natural guy to get in there and do it. As much knowledge as he has, it feels like he's thinking too much and probably, has a lot of notes coming from network executives or the producer, director or whatever. And he's thinking and sort of trying to plan what he's going to say in advance rather than actually just reacting.
Yeah. And that takes time, which is why he shouldn't be in the seat.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm almost grading him on a curve. You know what I mean? Like, because he's never done games like this before. You know what I mean? And I expect the worst. And so maybe it's just like, well, he wasn't the worst. So I don't know. I feel like I'm grading him on the curve a little bit, but I'll stick by it. I'll stick to my grade.
I mean, that's why, and a lot of people don't like 3-man booths. I really kind of feel like it might have been better for Tom Brady to
help him
be
out
in
a little bit.
booth.
Sure.
Yeah. To kind of bring some different things out.
I could see that for sure.
Yeah. I don't know if Greg Olsen would have liked that either, but at least he'd still be in the number 1 booth if it were those 3.
Right.
So fill in the blank. The new Fox score bug was blank.
It was awful. That was the most rudimentary, disgustingly big score bug that I've ever seen. And as soon as it popped up at the very beginning of the game, I was like, what the heck is this?
What is that?
Seriously.
Yeah.
Too big. It was just, I don't know, man.
Too big, awful. Too generic. Like I felt like it was great if a high school media class made it, right. Because it felt like
scratch.
Any high school media class could have made that. Because the logos weren't even, like
there were no logos.
No logo. Yeah. It was just like KC PHI. Like
it was horrible. And let me tell you, I've watched a lot of high school broadcasts. They're better.
They probably have better.
The not the overall broadcast. You know what I'm saying? The
graphics, the
graphics, the score bug,
the chyrons. Yeah,
it's better. It's way better. I honestly, I don't understand who was like, yes, that's what we need to roll out during
the Super Bowl.
The Super Bowl. Like, that's what we need. Because if Fox decides that that's going to be their thing moving forward, they could not have gotten any positive feedback from that thing. There's no way.
So. It's awful. Yeah, it was just so generic, very bland. Like I can't even remember what they had in other playoff games and during the season. Now I know it looked a lot different than that though, and
oh my gosh,
I know I didn't have any problem with it. Just
right because it was just there, and
yeah,
the score bug should be like seen and not heard, if you will.
Right,
like this one was heard. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was so loud. Yep. It was awful. It was absolutely awful.
Okay, Vince. So I'm gonna light up fire on this whole show when I bring this up because I know where this is going to go. First, though, before I even get into it, I do have to say that when I sent the show outline today, I found out just what the actual age gap is between Vince and I, because I feel like philosophically we agree on, like more than we disagree on. He's definitely more old school, especially, he's an old school guy and who I obviously tease sometimes about, like who is the older guy here.
It's fair.
With some of his takes on some different things. But I asked him if the Super Bowl halftime, if Kendrick Lamar made the Super Bowl halftime last night, jump the shark. And Vince texted me, what does jump the shark mean?
I had no idea.
So I had to explain what jump the shark mean. And of course it derives from Happy Days when Fonzie, it was like the, late run of Happy Days. They went to California. Fonzie is water skiing and he jumps a shark in, while he's on water skis. And that created the term, like this show has jumped the shark, like it's past its prime, like its best days are behind it, that kind of thing. So that's kind of what jump the shark means.
Kendrick. Now it makes sense.
Yes.
Thank you for explaining it to me. Okay.
Kendrick Lamar, so I asked you if Kendrick Lamar had made the Super Bowl halftime show jump the shark. You can answer that if you want, or you can just give me your old man take on Kendrick Lamar. You can just get it on.
Look, I didn't know who Kendrick Lamar was in the first place.
I didn't either. I had to
the
Google.
music
I don't know how many times beforehand I even had to keep finding out who's doing the halftime again. I couldn't remember anytime I heard his name. So.
Just wasn't my cup of tea in the first place. The most entertaining part was I would like to go back and figure out how many people came out of that car at the beginning. It was like a clown car. Yeah. I thought it was hilarious. Like we were all trying to decide like how they were doing that. Like that was the conversation in my house, was how did they get all the people to getting out of the car? After that, I don't know. It didn't do anything for me. That's for sure. Like I am a Samuel L. Jackson fan, but it was like, was he supposed to be like the ringleader, like a circus? Like, was he the guy that's normally wearing like the red coat and the top hat, but he was wearing like stars and stripes? Like, that was the interesting take, I guess, on the whole thing. And then apparently Serena Williams was in there, and I didn't know that.
I didn't realize Serena Williams was
I found that out after the fact. And then I'm also finding out like after the fact that he was like making fun of people and he was doing all these different things. Like there was all these underlying tones. I felt like I was back in like senior year English, like reading a book and my teacher's being told, well, this actually means this and this actually means that. Like it doesn't mean exactly what it says on the page right here.
Like we were supposed to dig out all the metaphors and stuff, when like, you're.
It just, too much from all of it was too much for me. Didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it. It was on. I didn't change the channel. I watched it. But yeah, it was not. See, Brian, don't be making comments like that.
I just feel like, look, here's the thing. Is it my music of preference? No.
Fair.
You don't like the music. I didn't like the music. Probably most people over 40 or 55 or so fall into that category.
That's probably fair.
Fairly safe assumption.
Yeah.
Right? It's not geared toward us.
My kids knew some of the music, and they like some of the music.
That's the thing. I
get it.
The average age of an NFL viewer is mid-50s. That's the average age.
Right.
The NFL, like everyone, wants a younger audience, which is why they have the hip-hop and the rap acts and stuff that they've had the last few years. They're not bringing back Aerosmith anytime soon.
See, that was one of the better ones.
It was. But, for old heads like us,
I know.
Aerosmith was one of the better ones. But they're not gearing it towards us anymore.
Should be.
Because like the last three, I think it was Usher last year, and you had Dr. Dre and Snoop and all that a couple of years ago in Los Angeles. Visually, I thought that there were some pretty cool things. Like you talked about the car, and then you had, Samuel L. Jackson doing Uncle Sam and all that. But, like the flag, with the guys in the sweatshirts with the, red, white, and blue. and that kind of thing.
Very
like, again,
patriotic at times. I think it was supposed to be patriotic. It looked like it was. Yeah.
Right. So like visually it looked pretty good, but like, again, there were no songs that any of us knew.
Right.
Like I couldn't recognize anything last night. That's the biggest problem to me, because again, you've got over 100 million people watching this thing, and at least half of your audience is in the demographic that we fall into, which is older, right? So like, if I couldn't tell it and you couldn't tell it, how is grandma and grandpa supposed to tell it? Like that's the problem. At least 2 years ago, again, like Dr. Dre, Snoop, is that like, do I have a bunch of that, on my playlist? No. Mary J. Blige, Eminem. But at least I recognize some of
the music. Yes.
Yes, that's
because
right.
that was at least around when I was younger.
Exactly.
And I recognize. And a lot of people that are my age absolutely loved that halftime show.
Exactly.
Right. And again, that's not my music, but I recognized it. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And
so I was on board.
I don't feel like you can do 15 minutes of stuff that half the audience has no idea.
I'd say more than half.
Yeah, I'm being generous, I guess. But you know what I'm saying.
I do.
Yeah, like I feel like, so if you're going to have an act like that, you need some kind of collaboration where you can bring in some stuff, at least like 1.5 songs that people recognize. So that's like the original halftime show. And I was listening to a podcast like a week or two ago, like in the lead up to the Super Bowl. They were talking about the original Super Bowl show was early 90s. It was the Super Bowl halftime show. Early 90s, Michael Jackson was the original one.
Best one.
But when they did that? They did it the year after. This was before Fox had the NFL, and Fox did counter programming to Super Bowl's halftime the year before, and they did In Living Color. You remember did you ever watch In Living Color?
I know of it, yeah.
Jim Carrey and all them and like, so they did in Living Color at halftime. And so the next year they were like, well, we got to do something to counter this, if other people are going to put on counter programming and try to take away our audience. So they bring in Michael Jackson. Well, of course, everybody knows Michael Jackson, right? It's like, you've got all these,
that was so good.
pop. Yeah. I mean, that was like literally one of the best ones ever, so if the idea is to keep people watching, I just feel like you can't give more than half your audience a reason to either hit mute or, flip to something else at halftime.
Give me your top few off the top of your head, halftime or Super Bowl halftime shows.
Prince was awesome. Michael Jackson was good. The Aerosmith show was good.
Yeah.
Like, you probably can never bring Justin Timberlake back again because of what happened.
He's been on there twice because he was on there with NSYNC and Britney and Aerosmith, like the three of them. Like,
that's right.
That was a great collaboration, in my personal opinion.
Yeah,
like that was awesome.
Yeah,
that was awesome. And then
those were all good. And of course, I'm a Springsteen fan, so I thought Springsteen halftime was pretty good too.
J-Lo and Shakira. That was actually really good.
That was probably the last good one.
Yeah,
that like you could get a consensus on. But I don't think too many old heads are going to turn down J-Lo and Shakira at halftime. You know what I'm saying?
I'm not. So. I will not be the first one to do that. So
no, that's right.
But you and I are on the same page, at least as far as halftime shows are concerned.
Yeah, Michael Hahn, U2. I forgot about U2.
Yeah,
that was pretty good. But again, like you're just like all those acts are getting older, and they just
I know
they're not gonna,
which is true. Anybody that I would want to hear probably can't sing anymore. Probably, So it is what it is.
TD for ND, Paul McCartney. There you go.
Yeah, man. Bring Paul back. Let's go. I'd be all for a Paul McCartney movie.
Give us a little, get creative.
Give us something. Give us, like
if you're gonna go the hip hop R&B route, at least find some kind of more middle mainstream act that you can do a couple collaborations with.
Yes,
in the middle.
Last year and this year were just way too similar for me.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So,
and even Usher, I knew a couple of the songs last year, but last night, no idea.
Yeah, exactly.
No
idea. We're showing our age, and that's fine. My kids didn't even really enjoy it. They recognized some of the songs, but they weren't exactly enjoying it. So, whatever.
What about TV commercials? Do you have any favorite TV commercials last night?
It was a down year, man. Like I was not
I feel like the last few years they've really.
Yeah.
It's almost like they've almost given up.
I
On,
know. And
on
people
trying
are
to
still
do
paying
anything.
$8 million for a 30-second spot, which
I know.
is nuts to me. So the ones that stood out, the pickleball one with William Dafoe and the mom from Home Alone. I thought that one was pretty funny.
Oh yeah, that was pretty good. Where they were like,
they were
yeah,
playing for
doing
Michelob Ultra, I think. So I thought that one was pretty good. I'm usually
I like this one. I like this one. Michael's talking. I like the very first one, the Duncan commercial.
Which one was that? What
With
was
the
it?
Afflecks and Bill Belichick and his girlfriend were in there.
Oh,
It was literally the very first
Okay,
commercial
I
break,
must
I
have
think,
missed
of the game.
I must have missed it. So, well, whoops on my part. I'll have to look that one up. Because I couldn't remember a lot of them, so of course I had to.
Belichick was just
Google.
kind of standing there trying not to laugh. It looked like and he had
That's
like
probably
one line.
accurate. I thought the
But they were dressed in. You remember the Duncan commercial they did a couple years
that
ago
one was hilarious
with Affleck and Matt Damon, and they had
Yes.
the jumpsuits.
Yes.
They were all wearing the orange jumpsuits.
Oh, well, now I've got to look that one because I thought that one was fantastic,
including Belichick. So
okay, that might be a winner. The Matt Damon David Beckham one was funny-ish. It was okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know, the rest of them were just okay. I don't know. The Matthew McConaughey thing where it's like the NFL makes you think about food.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like isolated, that would have been a funny commercial to have during the Super Bowl, but they've been doing that
a different version of it.
Yeah.
Like, Jerry likes rice, or
Right.
Jerry's eating rice.
Like,
yeah,
okay,
like,
it's a funny concept. Like, I'm on board. I think it's
if
funny.
they would have debuted it in the Super Bowl,
Yes,
instead of blowing it ahead of time.
Yes, that's exactly right. And that's the other problem with all of this. All of these are, if you want to see them, you'll see them all ahead of time.
Now. Yeah.
And that's no fun. I like to be surprised. So I purposely didn't look for any of them this year.
Sean said Seal and Mountain Dew. Do you remember? I thought that was just weird.
That was weird.
Seal as a seal.
Like, I had to explain to the people in the room that the guy with the head and the seal, his name was Seal. And like,
see, and here's another thing. Like, they won't give us a halftime act that gears toward, the over 40 crowd, but they gave us a When Harry Met Sally Miracle Whip commercial, or whatever it was, Hellman's or whatever it was.
Which was actually pretty funny. Because then they had what's her name, but like, I'll have what she's having.
Yeah.
That was actually really good. I
Even
thought
though
that was pretty funny. But I'd seen it before. I saw it weeks ago.
Yeah, it was creative, but like I heard a couple of, one, like Meg Ryan was kind of doing a bad imitation of herself. I know she's older now, but still, like the original, didn't quite hit that note. Two, the deli they were in, I heard some people who I think it's Katz's Deli in New York. They were like, who actually orders a turkey sandwich in Katz's Deli? Because I think they're famous for pastrami or something like that. So like sitting in this deli where like, who is actually using mayonnaise in Katz's Deli, kind of thing. But
fair enough.
Yeah, it was solid.
Yeah. But I mean, nothing was really like, I'm usually a sucker for like the Budweiser commercials and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, wow, a Budweiser commercial. This would be great with the Clydesdales and the whole thing. And it was like, It was a little guy that rolled a keg down the road. Like,
I agree.
I agree. Yeah.
General lack of creativity.
Really, so much so, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it. We did not go to 4.5 hours.
Sorry.
Shocker.
3 hours shy.
That's right.
God, can't even imagine.
Whew. All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up with that. We've got plenty of shows coming up the rest of the week. Next week's going to be a little bit interesting because I've got a Monday night basketball game, and then Thursday, like traveling later in the week as well. And I think you guys might have some conflicts too, but we'll get through this week, I think. Okay. And we'll see what happens when we get to next week.
Yep. We'll figure it out. Yeah. This week will be,
we might have to bring Ryan. We might have to bring Ryan back.
Yeah. Sorry, Squirrel. You're in. You're tagging in.
There you go.
Because I still don't know what's going to happen next Thursday. So we'll have to see how it goes.
All right. Hit the like button before you leave, and we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.